how an education for life teacher can interact with their students by first focusing on their own self-awareness. So this is the second little vignette I wanted to share in this series. These are based on the book Education for Life by J. Donald Walters. And the last time I read a little passage about the importance of knowing yourself and how that's so important in education to start from the inner awareness of each child. So the story I wanted to share today had to do with a young man who proved to me that he was extremely aware of his self and could describe it very clearly, and it set the platform for us to work together. So this young man's name was, we'll call him Daniel, and he was about 10 years old at the time. And when he came into my classroom, I started to notice that he had a pretty pronounced ups and downs of moods that would affect him. And when he was in an upper mood, he was quite a delightful person to be around. But when his mood dropped, he became just really completely out of it. He would just kind of not participate in anything. He was sad. You could feel that energy. So after I got to know him enough to bring up the topic, which was maybe after 4 or 5 weeks of the term, I went up to him one day and I said, Daniel, I noticed that sometimes you feel like, it looks like you're pretty sad. And I wanted to know, if you were aware of that. And he says, oh yeah. He says, yeah, I get really down the dumps. And I said, well, tell me about it a little bit. He says, well, I'll come into school, and he says, and I'll be fine. But then, I start to feel I'm like a little dusty. It's like a little dust has settled on me, and I have to kind of brush it off. And he says, if I remember to brush it off, everything's fine, and life goes on. He says, but sometimes I forget, and I don't notice it. I don't notice the dustiness. And he says, if it just sits there for a while, it kind of like it turns to mud, and I start to feel kind of dirty, and it's harder to get rid of. I have to really work at it if I catch myself there. He says, and then there are other times, he says, when I'm not even paying attention to that, and it just keeps getting harder and harder. And finally, it's like I'm down in the tar pits. And he says, when I get in the tar pits, I can't move. I can't get out of it. I'm stuck. And I said, wow. I said, that's amazing. I said, what do you like to, do you like to be in that kind of state? He said, oh, no, of course not. I don't want to be in that state. He says, I just don't know what to do. And I said, well, how about if we try to see if there's a way I could help you? And he says, yeah, I'd be into that. I'd be happy with that. He said, I don't like to be in that state. I said, well, when I notice, I can watch, and sometimes I can notice that your energy's starting to drop, and you're starting to get a little, I guess you could say, dusty. And what happens if I came over to you and I gave you some kind of signal that the other kids would notice about? He says, yeah. He says, I'd really like that. And I said, what do you think I could do? He says, well, maybe you could just come up and put your hand on my shoulder, and then I'll know that it's time to look and see if the dust is turning into mud or whatever. And I said, yeah, okay, I can do that. And so we started that, and I would, be teaching the class, but I'd have one part of my mind watching Daniel. And if I started to see him, getting a little down, I just come over and I just wouldn't say anything. I just do the thing we decided on together. I put my hand on his shoulder, and he might acknowledge me or he might not. But he started to just being able to click into a different gear at that point and start to realize, oh, now's the time for me to get out of this. And he made amazing progress. And it was a wonderful opportunity for me to see that working with the students, all his own awareness and his willingness, of course, to work on it, then we became a team. Whereas if I came in and said, Daniel, you look really sad, get out of it, come on, do it, get in the class, that would have created this whole tension thing between the two of us. But this way we became teammates. And that, again, was just helping me set the tone of how an education for life teacher can interact with their students by first focusing on their own self-awareness, inviting them to see if they'd like to change a situation. And in this case, it was obvious. He was, one of the other points that was made in this book is people, everybody is motivated by getting rid of pain and finding happiness. So this was an easy one to work with. But it really did make a huge difference in his life at that point.